Welcome to Leading Behind the Scene. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Young, the go-to business and operations consultant for six-figure CEOs who are ready to greet their next level of growth. And I'm ready to share tools, strategies, and tips to help you excel in your business and your life. If you're a service-based entrepreneur, be sure to join me each Thursday. Find me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode. And if you love the content, leave me a rate and review. Now let's get into today's episode. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back. This is our final episode on business boundaries, when to say yes, and how to say no to create a healthier relationship with your business. This week, we're going to be talking about getting over boundary setting guilt to grow your business and your confidence. Now, guilt is a human feeling that we're all familiar with, but have you ever thought about why we feel guilty? What are the root causes of feeling this way, especially if this is an ongoing occurrence? Feelings of guilt often stem from blaming ourselves for something. Sometimes we go so far as to blame ourselves for things that are completely out of our control. How quickly we jump to that self-blame game is often rooted in our childhood. I've heard that between the years of 0 to 8, we create a subconscious story about ourselves based on our upbringing and the lessons learned from the adults in our environment. The adults often don't realize that they are our first and most important teachers, but these are the years in which children are most impressionable. That's what I heard. I am no psychologist, okay? Those feelings of self-doubt and being enough are two of the primary causes of guilt in adults. And chances are those who struggle with this as adults also struggled during those formative years. So how can lessons from so long ago create havoc and guilt so many years later? It's all about the subconscious mind. Think about your childhood. Did you have parents who yelled all the time? How were you disciplined? What did you do to get yelled at or disciplined? Or maybe you had calm parents who rarely yelled unless you did something bad, and then those yells shook the whole house. Maybe your subconscious remembers all these incidents and ingrains those feelings of always doing something wrong or I can't do anything right. Did you dread coming home from school with anything less than A's on your report card? Were you afraid to ask simple questions because your parents were always busy or you thought they'd say no once again? Really sit with those feelings. There are reasons why you felt that way. And unless you continue doing some personal and professional development as an adult, they will remain with you. And trust me, entrepreneurship is the biggest personal development class of your life. Yes. And according to an article I remember seeing some time ago on Forbes, some business owners, especially women, tend to feel very guilty about setting boundaries. They don't want to be perceived as rude, or they wonder if their clients will get angry having to follow those rules, if their potential leads will turn away because of those boundaries and rules. Their guilt may also come from feelings of self-doubt, such as, who do you think you are that you can run a business, right? This is quite prevalent with adults who didn't receive praise as children or who were insulted frequently. Growing up with that type of frequent criticism undoubtedly leads to wondering if you'll be good at anything. Now, let me be clear. Even if you had the most loving upbringing without shouting or being spanked, you can still suffer from self-doubt, guilt, and wondering if you're enough. I'm just using those examples because they are easy to visualize the lessons that we learn at a young age, and that was my experience, some of it, right? Some people might have to dig a bit deeper to understand why they struggle with these feelings, and there's nothing wrong with that. Each of us are on a unique journey. But getting back to business owners feeling guilty, if you open a business and approach it as a way to serve your client base, you may find yourself falling into the people pleaser category. And there's nothing wrong with serving your clients and wanting them to have a wonderful experience. I love my clients. I want to serve them at the highest level possible, and I want them to have a wonderful experience. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? In fact, that's what keeps clients coming back over and over again. But we do have to ask ourselves, at what cost to our own mental health are we willing to please them? And this is why business boundaries are so important. Think of any brick and mortar business. Every single one has business hours. And yes, there are a few that have 24-hour openings. You know, you have your fast food restaurants, you have some of the gym places, and then of course we have our first responders who are available all night, right? I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the vast majority of businesses have specific business hours. So then why do you feel guilty for implementing business hours for your business? You still have a personal life, just like any traditional business. You still need time to sleep and eat. Just because you're missing a commute because you work from home doesn't mean that you need to be on call 24/7, unless that's what you want to do and you choose, and that's part of your business model. Then have at it. Boundaries are a must have to avoid blurring that line between work and private life. Remember your core values that you set. You started this business for a reason. You are in charge of creating your dream life and your dream business. If you burn out, who's going to carry on the legacy? Who's going to carry the legacy? So, here are a couple of tips for getting over that boundary setting guilt. Number one, other people's emotions are not your responsibility. You can't change how someone responds to you setting a boundary, but you do get to choose how you show up and whether you choose to honor yourself first. Number two, and you've heard this one before, no is a complete sentence. You don't actually have to provide an explanation to anyone about anything. It is your choice if you decide to, but you do not have to. Number three, remember that every yes to someone or something is a no to someone or something else. If you say yes to lunch with a friend, you might be saying no to a discovery call with a potential new client. What are you willing to reasonably give up in order to please someone else? And then you can also try some of these other tips and tricks when saying no or setting a boundary feels hard, right? Create an email autoresponder so you don't have to respond to emails right away. Let it do it for you. Get an assistant who will gatekeep your schedule and calendar and ensure you're not overscheduling yourself. And let them say no. Let your calendar do the talking. Block off all your priorities in your calendar first so you can clearly see them. And then any client who's trying to book with you isn't able to book unless you're truly available and only in the slots that you have available. Create a rule to respond to every request for your energy or time with, let me get back to you. Then run it through your litmus test and your core values test before giving a final answer. And then practice. You can only get better at something if you practice. So practice saying no in every area of your life as often as you can. And I know that sounds crazy, but practice it. I promise you, you will start to love it. You can say, no, thank you. You can say, I can't at this time. You can say, I'm not available. You can say, I'm not interested. You can say all the things, right? One of my favorites is, yeah, I'm not prepared to do that right now. Right? These are all acceptable responses and no additional context is needed. Right? Keep it in perspective. Most things in business are not life and death situations. Yes, they can feel very urgent and like emergencies, but you will still always have the power to say no or not right now. I hope this series gave you some additional understanding of how business boundaries can help you. Not only will your mental health benefit, but so will your business grow. If you don't currently have boundaries in place, take some time to create a list so you can implement them within the next week. If you do have boundaries in place, take time to examine them and find out if they're working for you. Are you enforcing them across the board? Or are you giving certain clients leeway? And then also take this time to write them out in an email or some sort of print format and distribute them to all your clients. Use this also with any new prospects so they know from the beginning how you run your business. And anyone who does not agree can find another service provider or another coach or another consultant to work with. You are the most important thing. Without you being mentally, physically, and spiritually well, none of it works. Set the boundaries and grow your business with more ease. Until next time, thank you for listening, beautiful people.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Leading Behind the Scenes. I hope you found some encouragement or helpful information today to help move your business and or your life forward. If you have a specific topic you'd like me to talk about or guests you'd like me to have on the show, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. I love connecting with my listeners. Also, be sure to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode and leave me a rating review. I'll see you next week.